There's something that I've always wondered. How did the practice of giving kids toys at Christmas start? And since this is a show about vintage toys, I thought it'd be interesting to find out. So let's go. The tradition of gift giving during the winter months predates Christmas as we know it. In fact, you have to go all the way back to ancient Rome, as far back as 497 BC. During the festival of Saturnalia in December, where people exchanged small gifts and tokens for good luck, and children used to receive small trinkets or clay dolls. But when did this start during Christmas? Well, we have to fast forward to around 280 AD, and it's said that that was the year that St. Nicholas was born. And it's also believed that he was a wealthy individual who became a monk-like figure and traveled Myra in modern-day Turkey, doing good deeds and helping the sick and needy. And as his story spread to the rest of Europe, they started celebrating his memory on December 6th, and it's said that he would give gifts to children. But this was popularized by the time the Renaissance came around, from 1450 to 1650, when the practice of giving gifts to the servants in the months of December was eventually replaced by families giving gifts to the children. And by the end of the 1700s, toy giving started to take shape, but hadn't reached the commercial outlets yet. A London book written in 1798 called Practical Education talks about what gifts should be given to children around this time of year. Toys should exercise their senses of the imagination. And they go on to say that the toy should be inexpensive so that if they break, it's no big deal. Toys like games, puzzles, and objects such as kaleidoscopes or paper-made dolls were the favorites, but these were usually not made in stores or seem as big business, but made at home or from small shops who made these to satisfy the local members of the town. But the commercialization of Christmas toys was just around the corner. If you take a look at newspapers in London from exactly the year 1800, there were no ads for children's toys during Christmas, nor mention of getting toys for kids around this time. But by 1816, if you look at these same newspapers in early December, there were 30 ads for kids' toys as gifts. So what happened? Well, writers started popularizing Christmas in the minds of people around the world. Washington Irving, in 1809, wrote about Santa Claus as he packed his wagon full of gifts and slid down the chimneys, leaving gifts for sleeping children to find when they wake up. Although this book, called The History of New York, was a parody, people loved it, especially children, and parents started leaving gifts for the kids and saying it was from Santa Claus. By 1820, the commercial side of Christmas was in full gear, thanks in part by two other literary works. The Night Before Christmas, written in 1822 by Clement Clarke Moore, which goes into great detail about how Santa Claus left presents for the boys and girls. And then, when Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol in 1843, it boosted the popularity of Christmas as a holiday that must be celebrated by all walks of life. And by this time, toys were being sold en masse and seen established around the world as being a common practice of parents to place gifts under the tree for the kids. And the toys that we're familiar with seeing in these old ads started to take shape. Everything from toy soldiers to dolls, building blocks, rocking horses started to be mass-produced in anticipation for the holiday sales pushes. And ads around this time began using Santa Claus in their art. By the end of the 19th century, stores like Macy's and Harrods started to decorate their stores for Christmas, even having either statues or actors playing Santa Claus. They transformed their stores into a toy wonderland, where parents would make it a tradition to go see the spectacle and get the full effect of modern advertising. Around the early 1900s is when we started seeing the first holiday catalogs from the likes of Sears start to pop up in every home in America, letting kids dream and make wish lists about the toys that they wanted. During the Great Depression, sales did decline, but when the economic boom happened in the 1950s in America, the marketing and establishment of Christmas in commercial business was in full effect, with the toy markets making their biggest sales during that period. So, what are some of the most coveted toys during the modern era of Christmas? During the Great Depression in the 1930s, if families could afford it, it was the Shirley Temple doll, made by the Ideal Toy Company. In the late 50s, Barbie was the hot toy. And in the 60s, Lego started becoming popular. Then, G.I. Joe started to make its mark on young boys, and by the 70s, the Rubik Cube was all the rage until Star Wars became the best-selling toy of all time in the late 70s, followed by the Cabbage Patch dolls in the early 80s, and there were even riots for this doll when parents tried to find these, which were limited in production, and they also had to stop advertising because the supply was so low.
It was parent against parent fighting each other to get those very popular and very hard to get dolls.
This was the scene in Zare department store in Wilkes-Barre Sunday morning as hundreds of people crowded up to a counter, all for one little thing.
Then there was the Beanie Baby craze, and of course, if you remember it, the talking Elmo doll. And in the late 80s and early 90s, as the toys were being replaced with more electronics, the video game console market became the best sellers and continue to rule the wish lists of kids to this very day. And even though you can't really pinpoint what the first toy given at Christmas was, at least now you know what the evolution is and how the tradition started and why kids get presents under the tree today. I hope you have a very happy holiday and a very Merry Christmas. And if you want to check out more videos about vintage toys, click the videos on your screen now. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.